I think that comfort is the most expensive thing that a young 22-year-old can buy because it will cost them their entire future.
For me, when I look at our culture today, it is not hard to find a guy that will make an excuse why he won't try hard.
Pretty much everyone.
We will fight so hard to not have to try, rather than just go try and fail and learn.
Well, howdy everyone online. Today we are going to talk about how Gen Z can buy a house. There's a lot of bad news out there, and there's a lot of reasons on why you shouldn't buy a house, why you shouldn't get in the market, doom and gloom, and how you should just live in your mom's basement and complain about it. But today I'm joined by David Green, and we're going to talk to you about why Gen Z should get in the market, how they can get in the market, and a very practical guide on what your next steps are if you do want to buy a house. So we have a room full of people here that don't own homes yet, but would like to at some point. So they're going to ask questions. It's going to be an awesome talk. I'm fired up for it. I'm excited about it. So let's jump in. David, would you mind introducing yourself, explaining your background, what you do, and why you're so passionate about real estate?
Yeah, that's great. I'm David Green. I was a former police officer, saved up a bunch of money doing that. Thought I was going to do my whole career doing law enforcement. And then realized in California Bay Area that people hated police officers with an intense passion. And I didn't think I was going to make it all the way to 50. God sort of started to call me out of that. I did the Jonah thing where I avoided it, and he had to throw me out of a boat and get swallowed by a whale. And I eventually ended up where I was supposed to be, teaching people about real estate and eventually about faith. But I noticed that a lot of Americans tend to follow this trend of, well, whatever everybody else is doing, I'm going to do. It's kind of like a school of fish. If I'm in the middle of a school of fish, I'm safe, which is probably not true. That's what's going to be noticed by whatever eats fish, that there's a big school of fish. And I always wanted to take a different path from what everyone else took. So when I saw my buddies spending money on dumb things, I didn't understand that. I didn't love working 12-hour days, 15-hour days. So if I'm going to do it, I want to get something out of that. And I became a saver when everybody else was a spender. That was the first thing that I did. And I noticed that not participating in what we'll call the world valued, it sort of it protected me from the gravity of what the world's offering you can pull you into. Just not going and getting yourself into debt immediately, not worrying about what your car looks like to other people, not needing the most expensive clothes or really nice sunglasses. I mean, I bought these today at a CVS because I purposely don't want to have $1,200 sunglasses. I don't want to project wealth because I don't want the gravity that pulls me in. And I saw God's word and what he cares about was able to grow in my heart when it didn't in some of the other people I knew. And I think it was because they were participating in what the world did. And I had sort of avoided that path, not on purpose. That clicked. And so I became in love with saving. Then I noticed that working really hard at the different jobs I was a waiter for a long time, and I would save the money and I would get promoted. Then I was a police officer and I would work overtime. It forced me to pursue excellence and be disciplined when the world sort of just followed the fish. And that actually helped my relationship with God. I saw that putting myself out of a comfort zone or having to learn a new thing and getting yelled at and having stress sort of put me in a mindset where I was looking for the father figures that were going to walk me through how I could be better at what I was doing. And that made my relationship with God better. Every time I found myself giving more of what my best was, I found myself loving God more. And I started to make a connection. This money thing that gets talked about in the Bible, there's a reason for it, right? And then I invested that money into real estate, and then I just fell into that backwards, had no idea how that was going to work. And I became a millionaire on accident. I was a millionaire for years and didn't know that I was. I just didn't know how that whole thing worked. I just had rental properties. And then I realized that I wasn't a slave.
So becoming a millionaire in real estate, you can be so poor at the same time.
That's a great point.
Like you can have a net worth that's a few $1,000,000 and it's still hard to make all the payments, and like it is not liquid money.
Right.
That's what I think most people, when they hear I'm a millionaire, you're a millionaire, we don't have like this giant bucket of money to go out and spend. It's very hard actually to access any of that money because it's all tied up in your homes. And I think that's what this generation gets a little confused on is, oh, you're a millionaire, you are just loaded and you buy nice
it's a solid
cars.
point.
Yeah.
I'm still not getting guac when I go to Chipotle unless I really need it. Right?
Like, that's a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
I know there's the people that don't like the I don't drink coffee crowd. It's sort of a metaphor for I don't treat money casually. I think about it before I'm going to buy something. I have a goal, I have intention, and I don't want money to become a powerful influence in my life. So like you said, you could be a millionaire, but you still live disciplined. That's really a better way to put it. Guacamole's fine, but
Well, the verse in the Bible, you can't serve two masters,
Yes.
God and money. What people don't realize is they take that Bible verse and they say, well, I'm just not going to worry about money. The reality is, if you don't make your mortgage payment or your rent payment next month, you get kicked out on the street. So your master is money until you have money mastered.
it's a great way to put it.
Till you get money figured out and get it in the right place in your life, you are a slave to money, because people will take your car, they'll take your house, they'll repossess anything in your life if you don't have your money figured out. So until you get your money right, you are a slave to money. The Bible does not intend to say don't steward, don't plan, don't own that area of your life. It actually emphasizes it. And I flip that scripture on its head generally.
Yeah, I'm thinking because when you are accumulating assets that prepare you for the future, you're also becoming more disciplined in where your money goes. Mm-hmm. You need more savings. You need to pay more attention to what you're doing. You have to, like I said earlier, you really got to work at becoming better at your craft. When you have a family, when you have assets, when you have obligations, when you're accumulating like the responsibilities that come with managing a property, mm-hmm. things break with that. It forced me to become more purposeful, I guess you could say, about mm-hmm. how I spent my days. Mm-hmm. Whereas my buddies that didn't invest in anything, they'll throw money away, whatever. They take a $4,000 vacation because they have the money. They don't have a purpose or a plan for the money. What I love about it is the money itself, it doesn't matter, right? Like it's what you use it for. It could be used for freedom. It could be used for, I have a boss that's asked me to do something that I don't agree with morally. If you're in debt, if you have to pay your rent, you do what they say.
You're a slave to money.
That's exactly right. When you're not, you are a slave to God's will for your life, would probably be a better way to put it. And that's what I am working towards, becoming more of a slave to him. I want to be more indebted to God. I want to use what the benefits he's given me, whether it's money, whether it's influence, whether it's the ability to speak, the ability to build money, the ability to create jobs for other people. You're doing it on his side of a spiritual battle that's going on. And to your point, it bothers me when I see people that claim to be Christians, they claim to be believers. It's like saying that I'm a soldier, but I'm not going to practice with my weapon. I'm not going to stay in shape. I don't understand battle formations. I'm not disciplined. Mm-hmm. We need money on our side if we believe that we're in a battle. If you don't believe you're in a battle, you can sort of relieve yourself of the responsibility to acquire wealth and acquire influence.
It's just a much easier way to passively float through life, to be like, yeah, money's evil. I'm going to stay away from it. It's not for me. I don't need to buy. I'm going to rent. I was going to get into the stats on homeownership. The median homeowner in America is worth around $400,000 versus the median renter is $10,000. That's their net worth. It's 40 times wealthier just by owning a home. And people do all the comparisons of rent versus buy, and some seasons are different. And the reality is, owning a home, buying a home, planting your flag, even if interest rate sucks, even if it seems like home values are high, it forces you to become a disciplined person, and it forces you to get into the market. And I generally can't out earn what my investments earned for me. Like you get to a tipping point in your life where your stock investments, your real estate investments, your passive income, that kind of stuff, it starts snowballing past what your ability to earn income is. And that's really helpful, but it doesn't start at the beginning. You're not going to just get there. It's going to take 15, 20, 25 years to get there. But if you don't ever start, it's not going to happen to you. And that's why so many guys are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they're like, oh, I got to start investing. Well, time isn't on your side anymore. When you're in your 20s and 30s, time is on your side. And little decisions now can benefit you so much over the long run. And everybody's talking about the overinflation of home prices. That's just the price of homes now. Like that's reality. And if you look back on any 20-year time horizon, everyone would say home prices were outrageous. If you were in the 1980s and you looked at the early 2000s, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my $10,000 house is a $100,000 house. That doesn't make any sense. And then that $100,000 house is now a $500,000 house. And there's going to be a time in Arizona where houses aren't under $1 million. Like it's just everything within 10 miles of where we're sitting right now is going to be over $1 million, just because that's how inflation works and that's how money works over the long run. We're just getting to such high numbers that it feels uncomfortable. But I would rather ride real estate up while inflation's happening than sit on the sidelines and hope at some point it gets cheaper. A lot of people believe that lie that, at some point it's going to be a better time to buy. And when we look back, there are small moments where that does happen, like 08 and 09, but nobody was buying at that point. There wasn't a bunch of people like Gen Z wouldn't have been like, oh, now's our time to buy. Been like, the world's ending. That's what Gen Z would be saying if we were in 09. And house prices here went from like 400,000 to 100,000. Well, you could buy a pretty cheap house at that point, but nobody was buying. That's why they were $100,000. Everybody was terrified of the housing market. So, what would you say to the guys that just is there a perfect time to buy a house?
I think that we don't understand how money works. And that bothers me when, like, Jesus talked about how he was sort of condemning or maybe criticizing the believers for being foolish. He's like, the people of this world are smarter than you are. And he tells this parable about a guy that was going to lose his job. And he went and made friends with everybody that he could while he had the ability to, so that when he got fired, he still had people that like owed him. And he's like, you guys are too stupid to do this. And I look at a lot of the believers today with a similar perspective. We don't know how money works. We see what the world's doing. We copy what the world does. It's that school of fish mentality. And then you end up with bitterness and frustration that it didn't work out for you. In my mind, there were two time periods in recent American history where the way money works changed. The first was, I think it was 1968, and I believe it was Nixon separated the dollar from being associated with a specific amount of gold. So a dollar used to be a note that represented gold. Like if you've heard of Fort Knox, like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, that's one of the places we kept all our gold.
There's no gold in Fort Knox anymore.
Not anymore, but there used to be. And what that meant was the dollar could not inflate past a certain point. You'd have to bring a bunch of gold in to be able to have more dollars. That's why gold holds its value. It's incredibly hard to get it out of the ground. It takes a lot of labor. You can't increase the amount of gold in the world like that. When he separated the dollar from the gold standard, you could just print money. And so what America's done over decades of time is we've imported actual things of value from other countries. The t-shirts we wear, our shoes, our medicine. Other countries have their poor people make it. They send it to America. We just send them a dollar bill. And because America is the global world power with an incredible military and we set the rules, what's the golden rule? He who has the gold makes the rules. We got away with this. But that's led to massive inflation. That's the first thing. The second thing people need to understand is around 2010, after what you mentioned, when we had this big recession, they started creating dollar through something called quantitative easing. We don't have to get into that today, but it took the ability to make more money and it put it on steroids. We just inflated money like crazy. All that wealth that was created went into the hands of smart people, private equity, BlackRock, big hedge funds that now are walking around with insane amounts of wealth. And if we had what you said, we had another crash and housing prices came down, the people in this room would never touch it. These guys with billions and trillions of dollars would snatch everything up. The inventory would correct. The prices would stabilize. They'd feel expensive again. And all of the regular mom and pop Americans would never get the house. They would go into the hands of these wealthy people. So to your point, waiting for the cheat code, this is the great time. It's on sale. I'm going to go in and buy it. You will get outmaneuvered by the people way smarter than you that are actually in bed with a lot of our politicians and know about these opportunities before they happen.
When I bought my first house was 2019. And the environment here in Arizona was insane. Interest rates were 2.5%, 3%. This was before COVID. And there was like 6 to 8 offers on every house the day it was listed. And a lot of those were cash. It was almost impossible to buy a house. Kind of what you're talking about, where if there is a inefficiency in the market, it gets corrected really quick. Well, it was happening here where it was like you had to fight to buy a house. And that's what we did. We fought, we got a house, and with 2020, COVID happened, and then the government printed 25% more dollars. And then it was crazy. Inflation went up 25% over the next 2 years. They printed 25% more dollars. So it was not rocket science on what was about to happen. We sent out stimulus payments to everybody. Everyone got extra cash. Everyone went and bought things they didn't need. And then inflation jumped, but housing jumped very fast because it's an asset that rides inflation better than anything else. Everything else depreciates, everything maybe stays stable, but housing historically has always beat inflation. So inflation's 3% a year, homes go up 5% a year, but it's not going up 5% on whatever you paid for the house. So if you put 40 grand in to buy a house, it didn't increase 5% on the 40 grand, it increased on the 400 grand that the house was. So what's 5% of 400,000? 20,000. So you gain $20,000 just because the housing market went up 5%. Well, you only put 40% in. Well, that's a 50% increase on your cash. That's crazy. So it's a leveraged investment that keeps up with inflation. That's what most people don't get about real estate. You can go leverage buy stocks, and that's a really dangerous thing to do. But everybody uses leverage when they go to buy a house. If you put 10% down, 5% down, everything else is debt, but that debt can increase at whatever the housing market increases by. And that's the kind of the hidden money maker. That's what gives you equity over the long term is if the housing market here jumped by 40%. So our first house, we owned 24 months and I sold it to Open Door, a tech company here. And we made $200,000 just holding a house. And I was like, I did the math and I was like, Ashley, we made like 500% on our initial cash investment. And all we did was live in that house and we basically got paid 10 grand a month to live there. Those aren't going to always happen, but big inflationary periods of time probably are in our future with what's happening with crypto, what's happening with the government, what's happening with AI, especially. We're going to see a lot of inflation over the next couple decades. And you'd rather have an asset that at least paces with it and you can live there. That's the really great part. And yeah, I always know a guy that always tells me, I almost bought a home here. I almost bought a house in 2019. 2009, I was this close. And their whole life, I almost bought a Bitcoin when it was $1,000. And their whole life is just marked by almost doing things. The difference between me and that guy is just doing it. Just pull the trigger on things. Take risks, take a step forward. And it's crazy if you're just, when the wheels on your car are moving, it's very easy to steer that car. And God steers the car. But your wheels have to be moving. God has to have opportunity to bless you and pour out increase. But if you're not doing anything, he has nothing to bless. And that's always my frustration with guys is they sit back, make excuses. Well, I'm just going to save up a bigger down payment. Okay, cool. You know what? If you put a 20% down payment into a house and that the housing market goes down by 10%, 20%, whatever, the only money you lose is your money. So whether you put 5% in or 20% in, it doesn't matter. You have the same amount of upside and the downside is your money, whatever you put into a house. So like FHA loans are 3.5%. And there's government programs that pay a lot of people's down payments now because they're looking for young people to buy houses. They really want young people to buy houses. So they incentivize it for young people. I helped a guy at the church last week and he paid $500 out of pocket to buy his first condo. And I didn't even think that was possible. But there's so many loan programs out there. It is crazy. But we can create, I think it's not about the down payment. It's not about any of those things. We as people are just creating barriers for ourselves to not take a risky step, something that makes us uncomfortable. So we said, okay, when we get this promotion, when we have this much money saved, our lease is this long. And we just kind of keep creating barriers for that perfect time. And there's never going to be a perfect time. It's just take the step, pull the trigger, and you'll be shocked at what God can do when you're a young man, young woman that is activated and taking steps in your life. We did not predict that first house was going to make us a couple $100,000. That was crazy. But we just needed a place to live. And it was the difference in, okay, are we going to pay $1,900 a month for us to make a mortgage payment or $1,600 to rent a house? Well, let's challenge ourselves. And it really pushed us to make the $1,900 a month at that point payment. Shoot, they paid us $10,000 a month to live there once we sold it. Like that was insane. So, buying a house will make you uncomfortable. It isn't going to be easy if you end up buying a house, taking that next step. But I believe that God blesses young men and young women that take risk with a godly intent to build a legacy. And you don't want to overextend yourself or get into outrageous debt. But home debt, as long as you are in a secure job and you feel comfortable about your future, it's good. It's not in the same categories like credit card debt. Credit card debt will just kill you. 20% interest over a year. It just starts stacking up. People never pay it off. That's why there's like the Caleb Hammers out there doing financial audits of couples. And it's like, you spent 30 grand last year on Marvel statues. What? But they wanted to buy a house, and if they just didn't spend money on statues, they could have made a mortgage payment all year. So people are really, really dumb, and they make a lot of decisions to not build a legacy. And it is uncomfortable to take the steps towards a legacy. It's really easy to take the steps towards what the world wants. And that's like, hey, I don't want to go out to dinner. I'm just going to order DoorDash and pay $50. Well, that you worked 3 hours to make that $50 to save yourself 15 minutes of going to get the food. That's stupid. Buying a house, that's not stupid. Maybe we have to cook at home and we have to eat ramen sometimes. Like, and we're just going to have fun and be broke while we're newly married, or, hey, I'm going to bunk up with a bunch of other guys and they're all going to pay rent in this house and they're going to make my mortgage payment. Like, there's a lot of options out there, but it is counterculture, like you talked about to begin with.
That's what I love the most about this for the believer.
Mm-hmm.
A, it shocks them out of being comfortable, which is probably the most dangerous thing you can do for your commitment to God. B, it's hard to tell yourself don't DoorDash when you don't have a thing you are working for.
Yeah, you have to vision.
When you know I want to buy a house, it becomes fun to say, I'm not going to DoorDash. We're going to cook at home.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have dumb things to go numb yourself with and spend money on, it forces you to actually pay attention to your spouse and entertain each other. The things that God made us, that the gifts that he gave us, we often ruin them by just pursuing the things the world can offer us and becoming little dopamine addicts to our phone or whatever's going on. When you have this vision and this goal, it pulls you out of it. So I like that for people's faiths. I also like it. You have to acknowledge the risk.
Yep.
There is a mortgage that's going to come. Maybe that means you step up and you work a little harder at your job.
Yep.
Maybe that means you get a side hustle. Maybe that means you work some overtime. Maybe you push yourself and you develop the abilities God gave you as a man. And then, like you said, also, I mean, I didn't mention this, but I owned, I think, 8 or 9 rentals before I ever bought a house to live in. And I was able to do that because I was paying $500 a month in Oakland, California, to rent a room from a cop. You could get a bunch of Christian guys and have a leader who says, I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to put 3% down, 4% down, and I'm going to buy a 5-bedroom house that's ugly and boring, but it's in a great area. And I'm going to rent the rooms out to 4 guys from the church. They're going to make my mortgage for me, but they're going to save because they're not paying $2,000 on the rent. They're only paying $500 a month or whatever the deal would be. So now they're on a path to buy their house that they can then go do it.
100%.
And everyone's objection to this, Landon, is, but I like my own space. I'm like, it's because you're in it too much.
If you like your mom's space.
Yeah. Get out and go get a job. Work hard. You're only coming home to shower and sleep if you're a single dude. It doesn't bother you if you're not in it all the time. But if you're fighting over who gets to play Call of Duty or Halo, of course you're going to want your own space. You don't like bumping into other people. So what we're describing is hard, and that's the point. A lot of the time people are not content with their life and they're waiting for something to change it, versus what we're saying is commit to this goal. Now there's a natural incentive to change a lot of the bad habits that we have, and we're on a path. And I've never met a man that pursued something like this, that bought a property, that got a promotion at work, that worked harder, that looked back and said, I wish I'd spent the last 10 years goofing off. I really regret that I committed to something and worked hard at it.
Yep. 100%. One of my favorite quotes is from Jim Rohn. I had it right here. I can recite it. If I can't find it. Become a millionaire not because of the money, but because of who it makes you become along the way. Like genuinely, if you guys buy a house, one day buy a rental, it is going to change you as a person. That's why somebody who starts a company, builds $1 billion company, if they lose everything, they can go redo it in like 1/10 of the time. They can start another $1 billion company. It changes how you're wired. When you learn how to be an investor, you're then an investor. It's not about the identity of, oh, I own a home or this or that. It's about, oh, I'm the kind of person that knows how to do this. I like that's car buying and selling for me. Pastor Mark jokes all the time that I have this car anointing. I've bought 140 cars. It comes very natural to me. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know what a deal is, and I know when to pull the trigger. And the same thing goes for buying a house. The same thing goes for stock investing, relationships, running a business, all those things. Once you get reps and you're good at it, that will go with you the rest of your life, regardless of if this house works out or that house works out or whatever. It will change you as a person. The burden and responsibility as a young person to carry a mortgage and to build a legacy, to start, will change you because you'll show up to work different. Well, I want to make my mortgage payment. I want to go buy a rental. So I need to show up to my job and I need to work harder. I need to ask my boss, what else can I do? How can I be a guy that gets promoted? Carrying that burden as a young man or a young woman, it's a good, godly burden to carry. And it is how you build a legacy, and it will change you. And I used to think it was so silly when business guys and wealthy people would say, it's just a mindset. I was like, well, yeah, money matters though a lot. But the mindset is genuinely what you need, and the money follows that. And it is, I can take risk. I can do big things. I'm capable. I'm not constantly telling myself why I can't do it or what's holding me back or this calendar date, then I'll be good. It's breaking out of those kind of things, and you'll be shocked at what God can do. My favorite financial sin in the Bible is the parable of the talents. And
you had a video about this, I saw.
It's like something I feel like God showed me at the beginning of this year, and then I was really shocked to see it go viral, and then it went viral again. But the only person that Jesus calls worthless in the entire Bible is the guy that saved his money. And so there's three servants, and one gets 5 talents, one gets 3, and one gets 1, I believe. And he said, go invest this money, and I'll come back and see the return. The master comes back. The guy with 5 doubled his money. He got 5 more talents. And then the guy with 3 doubled his talents, did great. Each one, the master says, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master. And then the guy with just 1 was like, oh, I buried it because I know you're a harsh master and I didn't want to lose it for you. And basically, Jesus turns and says, you're a worthless human being and you're going to the place of weeping and gnashing of teeth. So the guy, and he didn't lose the money. He just saved it and held on to it. It's my precious. I'm holding on to this thing. It's the one person Jesus called worthless. And the reason that is stewardship is not just keeping what God gives you. Stewardship is multiplying what God gives you. And he showed us that. And so many guys online, you'll hear this clip and you'll say it's not about money. Then why did Jesus use a analogy that included, do you know what a talent is? A talent is, let's see, I've got it right here. A talent
like
was 15
wages?
to 20 years wages.
Oh.
So $500,000 to $1 million. So it's a very specific money measurement. It wasn't like, hey, I gave you $1, I give you $3, I give you $5. No, the guy with 5
It's like a life savings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you a whole life worth of money to save. What are you going to do with it? And the guy that did nothing with it was worthless. And it's the strongest language we see in any of the parables. And it doesn't just apply to money, but it definitely has implications in money. It is about your life. It's about the giftings God's given you, spiritually, physically, the life, the family, all of those things. Yes, but it definitely applies to how you steward your money because it was very pointedly a financial lesson.
I love this scripture, and it sort of flies in the face of the Jesus was the nice guy that never hurt anyone's feelings. Mm-hmm. He said, you wicked and lazy servant, mm-hmm. or some translations.
It's very strong language.
What I love about it is he points out the motive, because the man says, I heard that you were a hard and unfair master, reaping where you did not sow. And he basically used the excuse of the reason I didn't invest it was I was scared I was going to lose it. Mm-hmm. And I heard that you were really mean to people that made mistakes.
The victim.
And Jesus goes, oh, is that what you thought? And there's he answers the objection. He goes, then at least you would have put it in the bank where it would have got me interest mm-hmm. if what you said was true. So
that's interesting. I hadn't quite considered that. It's basically you didn't know your master. That's why you're going to hell. Because Jesus basically says this, well, he says, you're going to the place of weeping and gnashing of teeth. You didn't actually know your master. Your master is Jesus, and he's not a harsh, scary man. He wants to bless his kids. Like,
But this guy had convinced himself that he was off the hook because the problem was my boss. If I work really hard, my boss isn't going to give me a raise. It doesn't matter. You know how these capitalists are, right? It's literally the same thing that socialists will use to never try at life is, well, the system's rigged. Why should I try? He's using that against Jesus, who goes, I don't buy it. If that was true, you would have at least put the money in the bank. You did this because you're wicked and you're lazy. And there is such a strong understanding. Like, for me, when I look at our culture today, it is not hard to find a guy that will make an excuse why he won't try hard.
pretty much everyone.
We will fight so hard to not have to try rather than just go try and fail and learn. And what's terrifying, this is why I love this verse too, is that you're going to stand in front of God and you're going to use the excuse on him that you used on every politician to buy your vote, that you use on every job that you had that you didn't try hard. We're told as Christians to work as if we're working for the Lord, to treat other people's things as if it was our own. And we think we're going to stand in front of God and say, well, it's not my fault because you didn't put a system in place for me to win. We're going to be wrong. And so to your point, we should be so much more scared that we didn't give it our best in life than what if I try and it doesn't work? And that really does come full circle to what we're talking about. Yeah, it's hard to buy a house. It's hard to get in shape. It's hard to be in a happy marriage. There's things that are going to be hard because your flesh is going to try to stop. We don't get to stand in front of God and say, well, I didn't do it because it was hard.
I think that comfort is the most expensive thing that a young 22-year-old can buy because it will cost them their entire future. And you have to get uncomfortable now. You have to challenge yourself now. Sacrificing will never get easier than it is today. And it'll never be more fun than it is today. Because once you add a wife and then you add kids and you add a lot more responsibility, sacrifice looks a lot more painful. And it is a lot less enjoyable. You alluded to house hacking earlier. So young guys that aren't married yet, it's a very easy thing to do. Young gals too. I've helped people at the ministry do this. Go buy a 2 or 3 bedroom condo or a house, whatever you can afford, and fill the rooms up with people. You can put 2 guys in a room. They can both pay $500, $700 for rent. You can't find rent cheaper than that, especially if you buy in a good area. And those people will make your mortgage payment. It's a crazy concept. It was funny. I met a couple the other day, and it was 2 couples that had just gotten married and they were living in the same house. That was a little weird to me, but it's like 2 apartments. Like if you treat it that way with a shared kitchen, there are plenty of ways to make it happen, especially financially, because you would be paying less than rent if you're house hacking. If you've got a bunch of guys in a house paying for all the rooms, well, you're building the equity and you're not paying anything for it. So, well, you liked your mom's basement. Well, you can like this just as much. And you've got some buddies. I don't think when you're single, you should own a house or an apartment and be off on your own, especially as a young man. You just get in trouble. There's just a lot of opportunity to not have accountability with a girl, late nights. It's just not good to be alone. Like it's good to have community, and house hacking is a great way to do it. Once you're married, married and potentially a kid, you could let somebody be a nanny and pay a little bit of rent, help with your kids. You could, Ashley and I, we bought a house with a guest house. We lived in a tiny house on that property while we remodeled the guest house. We lived in 200 square feet. That was fun. It was probably the hardest thing we ever did, and one of the most enjoyable, fun memories looking back on it, living in a tiny house. Then we moved into a casita that I remodeled on nights and weekends. That casita was awesome. We lived there for 2 years, and somebody was renting our main house out, paying the mortgage payment. And it let us own a property that we would have never been able to afford. There's a lot of options if you're looking to solve the problem. If you're just looking at it as a problem, there's no options. I could scare you out of doing anything in your life with the amount of problems and catastrophizing you can do. You're either looking for a solution to do it or you're looking for a reason not to do it. And you're right either way.
Just like the parable. One guy got 3, one guy got 5. They found a way to go multiply it. One guy said, I don't want to do it. I'm going to blame the master, and found an excuse to not do it.
100%. It's very easy to come up with excuses. And that's probably my biggest frustration with Gen Z right now is like, I get it. It's hard. It's awful. I'm with you. But let's do something. Let's make a plan. Let's take a step forward. And he's the light into our feet, not the head beams to the next 100 years. Let's just take the next right step as young people. And the principles are in the Bible. Jesus taught throughout the Bible, there's 2,350 verses about money in the Bible. That's nearly twice as many as faith and prayer combined. The church doesn't teach on money at all. That's why I'm a pastor that wants to teach on money and finance, because Jesus did 20% of everything Jesus taught was on money. Personally, when he was here, he taught on money. And pastors only teach on money when it has to do with tithing, generally. There's very rarely do you see pastors help you figure out how to get your money right. The pastor should be one of the first people because Jesus was. And we as pastors don't follow that because most pastors suck at their money. I think that's generally why they don't teach on it. I think pastors it's become a backup plan for people that don't know how to get a job, and it should be a calling, and one of the most noble things you can do in life is be a pastor. But it's usually guys that can't hack it somewhere else become a pastor, and that is not the right reason to be a pastor. It has to be a calling.
That's such a solid point. And that's who most of us are learning from, are the people that are bitter because they didn't make it. They tried one time and failed, and they said, okay, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to become a cog in the wheel of a church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a difference between a calling and I couldn't make it, so I'm going to go do this instead. And then if that's who the congregation's learning from, they're picking up those bad habits.
100%. 100%. So let's get really practical here. How do you literally buy a house? And what are the steps you need to take if you wanted to pull the trigger on this? Because we can talk philosophically, biblically, ideas about all this stuff, but practically, what does this actually look like? Step one, what I always tell people is to call a loan officer first. So I'm a realtor. That's gone really well. I've really enjoyed that, but I'm not the best first call. When guys call me and they haven't done this, I always point them this direction. I give them 2 different loan officers to call and figure out options. So your loan officer, what they will do is they will hear your finances. They'll hear about your debt. They'll ask you questions about what you make, what a spouse makes, what your goals are. Do you want government programs? Do you qualify for anything if you were in the military? All kinds of stuff like that. They ask you all kinds of questions. And a loan officer gets you to reality. And it doesn't cost any money to talk to them. You have a mortgage company.
Yeah.
You want to just explain anything you would add to that would be helpful for them to know about?
There's 2 kinds of ways to get a loan. There's what we call retail broker, which is a person that works for a bank or a source of money and they lend that person's money. And then there's what I have, which is a brokerage where we are sort of like a middleman that finds you the cheapest money that we can. So I like the broker model just because we can talk to different lenders. But if you find a good loan officer, they're going to ask you all the questions you said. They're going to have you fill a loan application where you're going to basically they're going to run your debt and your credit, and they're going to find out what you owe. They're going to look at your income. They're going to come up with a debt to income ratio, and they're going to say, here's what you could afford at this monthly payment. And this is where the rates are today. Then what I always tell people is if that's too high, go down in the price of the home until you find what you would like. But to our point, the mortgage itself is not as important as how much of it you're paying. If you're house hacking and you're having other people in the home, sometimes the more expensive home that has more bedrooms or more casitas or more tiny homes on it
It's cheaper.
is the cheaper option.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I always, every time we buy a house, I don't go to the low side of our price range. I challenge myself with the highest I can qualify for. And it challenges me to go make more money.
I like that.
Every single time. And when the values of the homes increase, our first house, we were looking at houses that were like $320,000 to $350,000. And we ended up buying one that was $400,000, right under $400,000. And that was like all the money in the world for me. It felt like such a challenge. And our house increased at a much higher level because we bought an irrigated lot and it was in this cool spot of town. And we were able to buy a better asset that increased faster because we challenged ourselves. And it challenges me as a man to go make more money, to go show up in my job differently, to go ask, how do I get promoted? So in the same way you can seek comfort in every area of life. When you go to buy a house, you can seek comfort in that decision. And it is good. You want to live within a budget. You want to be reasonable. You need to consider, are both spouses working? How long is that going to last? What's it mean when kids come? All of those things are really important questions. But challenge yourself. Whatever that looks like.
You're highlighting the relationship between in the book I wrote, Pillars of Wealth, like defense and offense, or you could say comfort and ambition. That if you give yourself the easy way out every time, it's hard to get yourself to go give your best. And I like many times when God called somebody to serve him, it wasn't go play it safe. It was like, never go play it safe. Right. It was almost always like, God, I don't think I'm ready for that. He's like, you're not. And that's why I'm a light to your feet. And we're going to walk you through. I don't know how we got to the point today where we think it's a different God, that he's not going to do the same thing with us, but it's not.
100%. I think how you buy a house and what house you buy is how you live your life. It's how you make decisions. It's how you process things. It's how you problem solve. And you want to be somebody that's always challenging yourself especially early on in your life. Because that's who you're going to become over the long run. And again, you need to make good decisions for your family and where you're at right now, if nothing changed. But I am never going to assume I'm going to make less money next year. And as a man, as a woman in your career, you should always assume I'm going to go work as hard as I can so I can increase what I'm making. And the mortgage payment on this house is going to start feeling small in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I'm going to pay this thing off. Again, you don't want to overextend yourself, but you do want to challenge yourself. That's the balance in buying a house.
I like that. When your workout starts to feel easy, it's time to make it a little bit
100%. And that looks different for everyone. It's not I don't put a moral virtue on one or the other. Another lie that I think a lot of people fall into, and I mentioned this earlier, is I want a really big down payment. It's a trap. What I would say is I really like so if I have my first house, I had 20, 30% saved for a house, but I only put 5% down. And then I took that other 25% and had some in savings and some in stocks. What's great about having it on the sideline, if you're somebody that can hold on to money and you're not going to spend it and you can invest it elsewhere, if catastrophe happens, if your AC goes out, if there's medical bills, if somebody has to take a season off work, you have that money available. You're not asking the bank for it. The bank won't give you that money. When you have the equity in a house, you cannot pull it out. There's HELOCs, which is a home equity line of credit, which you can pull money out of your house. It's a little tricky, cumbersome. And if you were to lose your job, you can't do that. But I you can put as little as 3% down on a house. It just makes your payment a little bit higher, but I would rather $100 or $200 payment that's higher and have 30 grand in the bank account, because that makes me feel more secure than, I'm paying a little less for a house every month. Well, I would like to pay a little more for a house and have my backstock. I would like my powder dry for if I need to go to war for some reason, if I lose my job, if I get really sick, if Ashley gets really sick. I want to have money on the sideline.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that money, you will be in a hard spot, and the bank will not be nice to you if you can't make your payment. But they don't care if you put 5% down or 20% down. It's just a little bit different of a payment, and run those numbers with a loan officer. It's what is the different scenarios? If I put 20%, if I put 10%, if I put 3%, what's the difference in my payment?
Also with inflation, saving $300 a month with the bigger down payment every year becomes less beneficial to you.
Totally.
Because $300 becomes less money every
100%.
year. And I've had the same thing where someone was staunchly like, nope, I have $100 grand. I'm putting it down on the house. So they're going to put 20% down on a $500,000 home. And I've said, look, if you have to do this, put 5% down, that's $25,000, and use the other 75 to improve the home. Mm-hmm. Add a tiny home to it, add an ADU, buy a fixer upper in terrible shape, get a great deal, make it nice, add it as equity. Don't just buy the equity with the money, improve the property. There's so many better ways, to your point, to use that money, especially when rates are like, money's relatively cheap. We're not talking about 24% interest rates now, where that might.
This is about average interest rates right now. 6%, 5 to 6%. That's what it's always been. And it's pretty low compared to what it was in the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. This is incredibly low. It will get lower. It will come down. That stuff will happen. Again, that's another thing you don't realize when you're going in. So you can buy a house with interest rates today, what they are. And in 3 months, you can refinance the house, drop your interest rate, and you skip 2 mortgage payments. So you can never skip a rent payment, but you can skip mortgage payments. So if you go buy a house today, you won't make a mortgage payment for 2 full months. You can move in today. You won't pay for that house for 2 months. And then by the time you're at that 2 or 3 month mark, if interest rates have come down, you can go to the bank and say, I want to refinance. And they'll help you refinance. And you'll go through the process. It'll take 15 to 30 days. And then you can skip 2 more payments. And you can refinance as much as you want, as long as interest rates are coming down. So it's great to buy at a high place. And I've refinanced the house we're in right now 3 times in the last 2 years. So I've skipped 6 payments out of 2 years. So a quarter of the payments I have not paid. And that's awesome. And that's fair. That's like, once you understand how real estate works and banking works and loans work, you can kind of just dance through it. And it feels like you're cheating. It's like, oh, I'm not paying a mortgage payment for 2 months. That's crazy. I could never do that when I was renting. And it all works out great. But it's just knowing the stuff. And again, I would recommend you guys read as much as you can about real estate, listen to podcasts, listen to YouTubes, even if it's not that exciting for you. Just consume a lot of information, because you'll learn things like I just said, where it's like, oh, I can refinance in 6 months. I'll drop my rate. My payment will go down and I'll skip 2 months. Well, now you know that. So go learn as much as you can, because it's probably the biggest financial decision you'll ever make is buying a house. And it'll be the number one thing that generates revenue for you over the long term. So step 1, call a loan officer first. And so you can call a realtor first. I will refer you to 2 different loan guys. One is a broker, one is a local bank, and they give you a lot of good information. They will go through a process to pre-approve you. You'll submit your pay stubs and they'll check your credit and all this stuff. And everybody's always worried, I don't want to get my credit checked. That's like a stupid barrier for entry on not getting pre-approved. You can get your credit checked as many times as you want in 30 days, and you only get 1 ding from it. The ding sucks. The ding will recover in a couple months. It's fine. But don't let dumb things like a credit check get you to not do it. It's just another barrier that people scare you off on. So step 1, call a loan officer and get into reality. It's free. You can ask them all kinds of questions. They want to teach you, and don't feel stupid asking too many questions. Just, hey, can you send me over a spreadsheet between a 3%, a 5%, a 10%, and a 20% down payment? Could you do that? And generally they'll do that. They'll help you understand the best financial decisions for you. Then step 2, get pre-approved. That loan officer will issue something called a pre-qualification. And that's what I would need to go help you make an offer on a house, is a pre-qualification. They're not that hard to get. It's probably an hour worth of work on your end to send to the loan officer everything you need. They'll pre-qualify you for some amount of a house. And it'll be like, hey, you can afford a $350,000 house with this down payment. And then now you know exactly what you can go buy, what you can go hunt for, what you can go see. It's not helpful if you can only qualify for 350 to look at 550. It'll just make you sad. And the bank won't qualify you for more than you can afford. It might challenge you. You may not want to be at that top level of what the bank will qualify you for. But they will not they're not going to be like, oh, 50% of your income can go to housing. It's like 25%, right? Is about what you guys.
The debt to income ratio, they usually want around like 45%, where like that's what you have left over to be able to go buy the house.
And that includes consumer debt and car payments. Everything goes into that number.
Yes.
They don't want you over that 45%.
Yeah. Now, you did mention a pre-qualification, which I think you're using it synonymously with pre-approval, but in the lending industry, those are different words.
Okay.
So a pre-approval is like, we've vetted you, you're good.
This is not a rebuke or correction of anyone, but.
Correct. It's just a, clarification. A pre-qual is like because what a lot of lenders will do is they'll say, I'll pre-qual you, and you think that means you're approved, but it means we haven't verified anything.
Yes, which my loan officers can get me in 10 minutes generally. It's like, I talk to them. As long as everything they're saying is true.
That's a prequel, right?
Yeah.
You may end up in a situation, though, where then you go get excited and you're going to buy a house, but you haven't been pre-approved. And they go, oh, I didn't know about this. And you get your heart broke. So we usually try to pre-approve them and do the full process so that they know, oh, there's a problem. I need to pay this thing off, or I need to fix this thing. I can get a better interest rate if I do this thing, and then they're in a better spot.
Step 1, call a loan officer. Step 2, get pre-approved. Step 3, get a great realtor. This one is very important. So 60% of realtors don't own a home. You do not buy a home from somebody that doesn't own a home. So your first question when talking to a realtor, what is your real estate background? And if they just talk about things they've done, sold, that kind of thing, wrong answer. Do you own a home? That needs to be your first question to a realtor. Do you have an investment property? I think that jumps up to like 85% of realtors don't own an investment property. You don't want to work with them. If they've only ever bought one home for themselves, that's risky. That's not somebody you want to trust the biggest financial decision you're making. It shouldn't necessarily be friends and family unless your friends and family are great at it. It should be a very selfish decision because a realtor doesn't cost you any money to go buy a house. It costs the person you're buying a house from money. So you guys, when you engage a realtor, you're not paying them. The other person is paying them. There's all these new rules in the real estate world and you could potentially have to pay them. But like for someone like me, when someone works with me, I tell them, you're not going to pay me anything. Whatever commission I can get from the other person is what I'll get paid. I don't care. But you don't have to pay for this person. So might as well get the best one you can find. And it is, how many houses have they sold? How many have they bought? Do they own a home? What's their track record? Ask them like, what's your negotiation style? A lot of realtors won't help you lowball or make any different kinds of offers, or they're just, I'm going to make a full price offer and get this thing done for you. That's garbage. So there's so many things you can negotiate into deals. You can get all the appliances included. You can get a home warranty that covers your house for a year for the first year, and all appliances and AC and all the big expenses can get covered. We can get closing costs covered. There's such a wide gambit of things we can negotiate. But most realtors are just making it easy for themselves. They're trying to do 5 hours of work to get their commission and move on. So they're just trying to advocate for you to buy the house. One of the reasons I think I'm a good realtor is I don't care if you buy the house. I want what's best for you. I don't need the commission. I'm just here to be helpful to the few people I'm willing to do it for. And we do it for ourselves for investing. It helps us a lot. And if I can help friends or other ministry people, I love to help. But I don't need the sale. I don't need the commission. And that makes me dangerous in real estate, where a lot of realtors are barely making their payments, their housing payments. I think it's like 25 to 35% of them work a barista job. So if that person you're helping, they're helping you make a $400,000 decision, the best job they can get outside of real estate is serving coffee. That is not the realtor for you, I promise. So be very, very picky when it comes to your realtor. Make sure they have a proven track record.
You want the realtor that turned the 5 talents into 5 more, and now they have 10.
Yep.
And they're doing a lot of business and they're very experienced, not the person who has done 1 or 2 and they're just crossing their fingers.
They're just hoping to get your deal. That is not who you want, because it'll cost you on a bad deal. If they sell you a bad house, they don't negotiate everything they can. It could be anywhere from $20,000 to $80,000 if we're talking about a first time home purchase. So a good realtor will save you that much money through things like, we got a home warranty for someone that covered their air conditioning. Their air conditioning went out 2 weeks later, got a whole new unit. That was awesome. That was a $10,000 expense that they avoided. So a good realtor makes a big difference. So after you have a realtor, you can, hey, let's go see some homes. Here's kind of my price range. Here's kind of the areas. But assume you're not an expert. Just be like, hey, show me what you think I should be looking at, and go look at a few different areas, kind of do some recon, see what makes sense for you. And figure out what your non-negotiables are, and be a little open-handed with your non-negotiables the first time you go to look at houses. So, well, we wanted a house with our own yard. Well, maybe there's a townhouse that has a yard, but it has an adjoining wall, but you're 20 minutes closer to work. Well, that's a big trade-off. Looking at commute, looking at lifestyle, looking at a good realtor will help you think through what lifestyle do you want? Where do you want to live? What's your mortgage payment going to be? What are your non-negotiables? But just make sure your non-negotiables don't put you 2 hours from work, because you'll never get to enjoy that yard you bought if you live that far from work. So these things are really, really important to consider. But everything's a trade-off. We want more square footage. Okay, you got to drive further. Okay, we want we're okay with a small house. Well, you can walk to work. Like there's everything's a trade-off when you're going to buy a house.
That's really good. And a good realtor clarifies that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the realtors that are the ones everyone pick because I call them the waiters. What would you like? Coke? Okay, I get you a Coke. Well, anything else you want? More salsa? Okay, I'll go get right on that for you, because they don't know what.
They just help you make your bad decision quickly.
Yeah, it's a good
Like
way.
I know so many of my buddies in real estate, that's all they do. They want the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
They're paid more and faster if they just help you make your bad decision. I don't want you guys to make a bad decision, and a good realtor won't let you make a bad decision. But a lot of times we come in, you guys, anyone, any first-time home buyer, you come in a little bullheaded and you're like, this is what I want, and I know it's what I want. Well, you've never bought a house before, so stay humble. And when I'm helping people, I don't have an alternative motive other than I'm trying to make sure you get the best thing for you, looking at your whole life and your goals. But a bad realtor will be like, what do you want? Oh yeah, I'll make that happen for sure. Let's go buy you a house an hour and a half from here. Great, let's do that. Or let's buy a house in a really sketchy area. I'm not allowed to say that as a realtor. But take a walk at 7 p.m. at whatever house you're looking at buying, because you'll know if it's a place you want to live or not. Because do you feel comfortable with your wife or kids walking around there at night? That's a test I always tell anyone. Hopefully I don't lose my license over that. I'm not allowed to tell you if an area is good or not, but 7 p.m. with your family would be a good time to figure out if it is. So count the cost honestly. So after you've looked at some houses, go home, look spreadsheets, whiteboard, have conversations, run numbers. Luke 14, know every number before you commit. Like who builds a tower and doesn't count the cost? Very, very important. Knowing your closing costs, knowing all the fees involved, everything. So you know, okay, I can do this or I can't do this yet. Just very realistically. Then step 5, make an offer, go under contract. So what you guys need to realize, if you go out, you go look at houses and you're like, all right, I'm ready to make an offer. When you make that offer, you're not buying that house. You're just going under contract to buy that house. And then you have a 10-day inspection period to back out for any reason of any kind. So think of it like you're at Target, you're walking around, you've got a basket. I took something off the shelf, I put it in my basket so no one else can grab that thing. That's all going under contract means. You can put that thing right back on the shelf, no problem. People really get freaked out about going under contract. It will not cost you anything to go under contract. You need to do an inspection in that first 10 days. That will cost you money. That's the one expense you're not going to be able to get back. All right, we inspected the house. Turns out I don't want it. There's a foundation crack, something, I'm out. Okay, you spent $600 on an inspection. That saved you a bunch of money if you decided to back out. But you only back out for a really good reason. But you will not lose any money for going under contract on a house. You've got 10 days to back out for any reason. You just put something in your shopping cart you have not checked out yet. You really have that full 30 days to back out. Going under contract, you're going under contract for a set amount of days. It could be from 7 days to 30 days, depending on your loan officer, what loan you've got, all that kind of stuff. Once you're under contract and you're in like the last week and you're cleared to close by the loan officer and all that stuff, you really shouldn't back out. A financing thing would be one of the only reasons you'd be backing out in that last week. It's really that first 10 days where you want to decide, am I doing this or not? So you've got the 30 days, the first 10's inspection, and then the next 20 is basically just getting all your loan stuff finalized and finished.
Get an appraisal done.
You'll get an appraisal done in that time to make sure the house is worth what it needs to be, and the bank doesn't want to loan you money on a house that's not valuable enough to fulfill. If you were to fall apart and give the house back to the bank, they want to know that they can sell that house. So you have to get an appraisal and inspection, and then underwriting is happening with the loan officer during that time.
You made a really good point, though, that you're not getting married when you write an offer. People freak out.
I know.
They stay up all night long. They're sweating. They're nervous. It's like, I'm getting married tomorrow. You're not. You're dating them.
Yes.
Oh, I don't like that thing about this house.
I'm out.
And the worst I lost is whatever I paid for a home inspection.
Yep.
Right. And so a lot of people it's a series of very small steps. It is not a huge leap where you hope that you like where you land. It's a good point.
That's what most people don't realize. It's like, let's just get the thing under contract. If you're feeling pretty good about it, Then you and your spouse, or you and your parents, or you and whoever come walk through it. It's a lot more peaceful when you're under contract because you're not competing with anyone else at that point. You've got this thing locked down. It's yours first. But you don't want to like fool around with people either. Like I've helped a guy, he's gone under contract 4 or 5 times now, and he backs out every time. And I'm like, dude, you are wasting my time at this point. He's looking for a reason to never buy. He's very wealthy, but he's scared to death of owning something. And it's crazy to me. I'm like, you have more money than most people I work with, and you're just terrified to ever spend it. And it's just it's a constraint for him. So your money mindset does dictate a lot. But it's okay to back out. Just back out for a good reason. And then let's see. And then you close and you get the keys. Like it is just over. If it's a little surreal at that point, like 30 days, literally 30 days from now, you guys could own a home. It's very quick. And it could even be quicker than that.
It's an amazing feeling though.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I've experienced like when you get that house, you're like, this is mine now. Like something clicks in your brain when it was, you looked at it objectively, like, do I like it or not? And now it's, I don't know, like adopting a kid or something like.
Yeah. It's like get married, have kids, buy a house. So there are all these like, oh, for a man or a woman, it's like, oh, I'm designed to do this.
Yeah.
Like
it feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So let's walk back through those steps really quickly. So step 1, call a loan officer, get to reality in your own life. Step 2, get pre-approved so you can go and pull the trigger if you find a house. Find a good realtor. Be selfish on this one. Find the best realtor for what you're doing. Make sure they know the areas you want to look in. Make sure they know your goals and they care about your goals. They're not just helping you make a bad decision. Count the cost honestly. Really look at it. Make sure that you're ready to buy this house. So you've got backstop. Hey, if a water heater goes out, I either have a home warranty or I'm ready to pay for it. And get wise counsel. Talk to your families. Talk to people at the church. But only talk to people that are where you want to be. Don't talk to people that are just negative, because you'll find 85 people in the church that'll talk you out of ever buying a house. You don't want wise counsel like that. When Ashley and I went to buy our second house, only 2 people told me to buy it. Everyone else told me, absolutely do not buy this house. This is going to financially ruin you. This is way too big of a thing for you guys. You will never make it. Like literally everyone told us that, including family. And it was a lot. But I had 2 guys, and both of them, their net worth is, one of them is probably like 80 million and the other one's probably 100 million. And they were both like, you don't understand. You need to buy this house. Interest rates, this is like buying a house that's a quarter of the price 10 years ago. And you need to do this. Take our confidence, live in that casita, do it. And I listened to the 2 guys that have done bigger things and are where I want to be one day. And I did it. And it was one of the scariest, hardest things I've ever done, that whole process of getting that property right. And it has been the best financial decision I've ever made. And I think it always will be. Like the amount of equity it's built and where it is, the location, like the dirt. If you knock the house down where we bought this house, the dirt is worth twice what we paid for it. And it's like, just the dirt is worth that. And that's what that guy was trying to tell me. And I didn't fully grasp it, but I didn't need to. I just needed to listen. I just needed to be obedient. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll trust you. I'm in. So get wise counsel in there. Step 5, make an offer, go under contract. It's not that hard. A good agent will help you make the right offer so you can actually buy it. Coming in and just lowballing, if you want to just get told no a lot, is a good method. But you want to get to a price. Sometimes you make a full price offer because there's 18 other offers and we need to get this one done. Sometimes you do lowball. It's very situational, and a good realtor will help you know the situation you're in.
A good realtor will know the list price isn't what you're worried about. It's the value.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they got a deal because they paid less than the list price, but it was priced too high, or they think that they overpaid because they paid more than the list price, but it might have been under listed. So that's a common mistake people will make.
100%. 100%. So go under contract, and then it's inspection and appraisal time. This is where you decide if you're out or not. That's that first 10 days. Appraisal kind of happens in the middle. You're going through the underwriting. That's step 7 with the bank, just making sure everything's good to go. Do not buy a car. Do not open a credit card or change jobs in that window. You will mess up everything for your life. and your loan will probably fail. And also don't falsify pay stubs. Just ask your boss for your pay stubs. Had one couple didn't know how to get pay stubs, so they went on an internet site and made pay stubs. And then that's mortgage fraud, and you can go to prison for it. And I almost got in trouble for it. So that was a good time. That was really a good time. If you're getting paid somewhere, there are pay stubs. You just have to ask. That's just like a very Gen Z millennial thing, is just to not ask. It's like, I don't know, I'll just make them. So that was pretty funny. And then you close, get the keys, and you move in or you rent it out. It's that easy. Make sure you transfer the utilities in there. But it is not as scary as people make it sound. It's just a process and you go through it. But it does take being intentional. You can talk about buying a house for 10 years. Like the years will just tick by. You have to go do it. And I bought my first house at 22. You could buy a house at 18. You could buy a house, there is not an age requirement. When we were getting a 7-figure loan for the house, I was like, you shouldn't be loaning this to a 25-year-old, but they're not allowed to discriminate based off my age. So that was wild. Yep. And then you close and you get the keys and you're good to go. So then you own a home. So that's the really practical steps on how do you buy a house. And I think one of the last things I wanted to hit on real quick was just the risk of it all. There is risk in buying a house. We have made a tremendous amount of money in real estate, and we have lost money in real estate. But my wins far outweigh my losses right now. But last week, I wrote a $94,000 check to hand keys of a house back to the bank. Well, no, I sold it to an investor. So but I had to write the check to the bank to make up the difference. But I didn't just lose $94,000. We put $100,000 into that house. So I lost almost $200,000 on a house. And it was painful, but I needed to stop the bleeding. And we had a big flood last year in that house that insurance covered, but then the house pretty much became uninsurable. So my house insurance went up to like $3,000 or $4,000 a month, which is unheard of. Your house insurance should be $3,000 or $4,000 a year. But it went up a month that much, and the house just wasn't insurable, and they wouldn't cover fire, and it's in Prescott, and fires can rip through a place like that so quick, and we would just lose that asset. So between a mortgage payment jumping to like $6,000 or $7,000 a month and then no insurance, I was like, we need to stop the bleeding, and I need to hand the keys back to the bank, or else this is going to cause me a lot more pain over the long term. And I had to make that decision, and it humbles me to share that story with you. But I will tell you, that's a very small percentage of the amount of money I've made in real estate, and I will continue to make in real estate. One bad thing that happens to you shouldn't dictate how you make decisions. You should learn from it, and you should become more wise. But that one time of getting burnt isn't going to change that I invest and I take risk, because every other time I've done it, it's worked really well. It just happened to not work in that situation. But when you make big boy decisions, you can pay big boy prices. And I was talking to a pastor last week, Pastor Ryan Visconti at Generations Church, and he was like, you got to be willing to lose tens of thousands to make hundreds of thousands. You got to be willing to lose hundreds of thousands to make millions. And you need to be willing to lose millions to make tens of millions. And it goes true all the way up and down in money. But we're so scared of losing money that it terrifies us. That can drive every decision we make. But we need to have such a big vision that losing money here and there, that doesn't scare us. What scares us is not fulfilling what God's called us to do, the vision he's put on our heart, to go big, to build a legacy, to leave it all out on the field. And so I made that was a bad real estate investment, but it doesn't make all my real estate investments bad, and it doesn't keep me from real estate. But yeah, you learn from your mistakes, but there is risk. There are challenges to real estate. If you buy a house in Scottsdale or Phoenix in a decent area, and you buy it right, if you can hold it for 3 to 7 years, you're going to be fine. If you buy a house and need to sell it next year, you might lose some money. You're not going to lose like I did. I lost like that because we bought a $6,000 or a 6,000 square foot house that had 2 units that we could rent out one and house hack the other. House hacking backfired on us with this house because I thought it was a diamond in the rough and it was just rough. It was too quirky for someone to buy a second. Crest gets a second home market. They're not looking for an investment property up there. They're looking for a second home. The house that was 1,700 square foot sold a lot faster than the house that was 6,000 square feet. So, if you buy a house in an area like Scottsdale, Phoenix, Anthem, this area, you're not going to lose money like we did. We lost money because we took a big risk and it didn't pay off. Let's see. Risk is a big thing, and then get rich right, not quick. Start now, start small, and stay disciplined. If you do this over a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, you're going to outpace everyone else that you know, because most people just aren't getting started. The earlier you get started on real estate investing, stock investing, investing of any kind, it snowballs phenomenally. This 6% interest rate will look amazing in 10 years. Either it'll go down a lot or it'll go up a lot, but you'll have the 6% or 3% or whatever it ends up being. You will look like a genius for buying a house in 2026, in 2027, in 2028, because in a decade from now, you'll look like a genius. It doesn't matter what the market does in the middle, but you need to be willing to just put down roots and we're here. This is what we're doing. In Proverbs 13:11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little, it will increase. You want to build something that's sustainable over a long term, not I'm going to scale up and have 40 homes next year. That's really dangerous. That's where a lot of these guys, we were just talking about one of them, he lost $15 million for his investors, and he had to do a video explaining that. Everyone thought interest rates were going to come down faster, and you get a loan that doesn't work out right, and then the loan will start climbing. That's called an ARM. You don't want to buy a house with an ARM because you're trying to predict 5 years out that interest rates will go up and down. That's why a lot of people lost their houses in 2008, 2009, 2010, was a lot of interest rates started just skyrocketing. People didn't have the income to cover it. Buy a fixed rate mortgage, which is I'm going to have a 6% interest rate for the next 30 years, not whatever the market does interest rate, because you can't predict that. Dave Ramsey says to everyone to get a 15-year mortgage. That's stupid. If you can afford it, sure, do a 15-year mortgage. I'm the guy that says get a 30-year mortgage and pay it like a 15-year mortgage. You can always pay extra in, and it'll pay your house down really, really fast. But forcing yourself to pay it off in 15 years, what if you get sick? What if you lose your job? What if there's a lot of reasons that's not wise? I would rather have if you get a 15-year mortgage, the amount you pay every month is much higher. 30-year, it's going to be lower, but you can always pay that higher amount. That's great. It all goes to principal if you pay over that amount. So don't put an unnecessary burden on yourself. So this is how Gen Z can buy a house. It's not necessary. It's probably easier than it's ever been with all the programs that are out there and ability to have a bunch of buddies live with you or those kind of things. My goal in having this talk is just to help wake up Gen Z to you can do it. It is possible. Let's go out and do it and just start building a legacy. It could be a $200,000 condo, or it could be a $500,000 house you split with 6 buddies. You can like ask your parents to buy a house with you. Hey, this is your investment. I'm going to live there. I'll make the mortgage payment with my buddies. Like there's creative ways to buy houses, and that's all stuff that we can talk offline and explain. But there are a lot of methods to do it. It's just, you got to decide, do I want to do it or not? And if you want to do it, you'll figure it out. And if you don't want to do it, you'll find excuses. So, all right. In all of this, what questions do you guys have? Any kind of question, any kind of scenario, me and David are available to answer any questions. Yeah.
At what point in the home buying process do you factor in how much property tax and home insurance is cost?
So
when you're getting pre-approved.
Yeah. So a good mortgage person will put that in there and help you. They will tell you what your whole payment is, and that's included in that 45% that you can qualify for is insurance and taxes.
What are your thoughts on HOAs? Should you avoid them at all costs? Are they fine?
It depends on your lifestyle. Like Arizona, there's a lot of people that So like pool maintenance is a big thing. So if you wanted to buy an apartment that has a nice pool and you guys enjoy that lifestyle of like going to a pool, it's like probably the cost of maintaining a pool in your backyard. If you want to buy a house and you have your own pool, we avoid HOAs like at all costs, but that doesn't mean they're wrong for everyone. I just like having more freedom of, I want to paint my house, whatever. I want to work on cars. I don't want someone telling me my cans are out too long, whatever those things are. But that's just me. There isn't something that bad about an HOA, but that if it's $200, $300, that counts against what you can qualify for on a house. So if you buy a house without an HOA, you can afford more of a house. If you buy a house with an HOA, the amount you qualify just goes down based on whatever that is a month. So it's all about monthly payment. Mortgage, insurance, and HOA are the numbers that dictate how much you qualify for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wouldn't say at all costs. The biggest risk of an HOA is if they don't manage the money well.
Yeah.
They can then be like, hey, we ran out of money. We have to pay for something. Everyone's costs are going from 200 to 800. I have a couple in Maui and they came and said, hey, we got to replace the plumbing and we didn't save money enough. Everybody has to pay $56,000 per condo. So I had to come up with $120,000, $112,000 in like 60 days.
It's crazy
to fix these things. Yeah. And the HOA people rarely ever take responsibility. They're never like, I'm so sorry. We were irresponsible.
Yeah, they don't care.
Most people don't care.
And you never, to me, you kind of never own the house because you're always going to pay that payment and it only could go up. So I avoid them at all costs for me, but that doesn't mean all people should avoid them. In like a condo complex, it can be nice because they'll maintain the roof and sometimes the AC and the plumbing. And so it can be a burden off of you, but the pros never outweigh the cons for me and Ashley. Yeah.
What's the just step though, like a newly married couple, like between buying or renting a house or an apartment or a condo, like what's
Yeah. So it's got to be your goals and how much money you're making and what you think you'll make in the future. You need to factor all that in. You're probably not going to buy your dream house when you're first getting married, but you could buy like a great condo or a townhouse or something that's an incredible rental, live in it for 2 years, save up more money. If your incomes are getting up to speed and you're like, okay, we're going to jump into an actual house in the future. If you live in a house for 2 years, you can sell it anytime in the next 5 years, tax-free. Basically up to $500,000 is tax-free. So the reason I lived in that first house 24 months was so I got the tax benefit, which is if you live there for 2 years, it's tax-free with the IRS. So we had $200,000 profit with zero tax on that. If I would have lived there for 23 months, I would have only gotten like 130 grand. The government would have taken the rest. So if I was doing it right now, I would go buy a condo in Scottsdale in one of the best areas I could afford. I would live there with my spouse and plan on, okay, we're going to have kids, we're going to do whatever. But right now we're basically we're going to get this thing so it's tax free and we can rent it out for a few years. Maybe we keep it as a rental forever. But it is our drop spot until we start having kids, and it's going to increase in value. Condos in Scottsdale are great, or surrounding areas. And just plan on turning it into a rental. It's great jumping spot. And every 2 years, you can basically use an FHA loan. And as long as it's the house you're moving into, you get a much better rate, lower down payment, all that kind of stuff. So you can use an FHA loan to go buy a fourplex, or a duplex, or like in Old Town Scottsdale, there's these fourplexes. They're 2 bedrooms each. So a fourplex is like a little apartment complex, basically. And they will qualify you off of the rent for each room as well as your income. So those are like $1.2 million or something, but somebody who qualify for a $400,000 house could potentially qualify for it because of the income each unit will bring in. So kind of crazy. That was what that guy that told us to buy this house, he was recommending I go do that every 2 years, is go buy a fourplex, live in one of the units, rent out the rest, have them pay the payment. And it's a killer way to get a crazy low interest rate, because if you're an investor, your interest rate's much higher. They're not as nice to you. But if you're living there, your rate's much lower. So Yeah.
What's the minimum amount of time that you have to live in a property before you can rent it out and leave it?
2 years. It needs to be your primary residence for 2 years. Well, if you want that tax benefit, you could live in a house for 2 months and then, oh, a plan's changed. I have to go here. It can immediately get turned into a rental. It doesn't affect your mortgage or anything like that.
So what he's referring to is if you live in a house for 2 years out of a 5-year period, you can sell it and not pay capital gains. Okay. If you want to move out of it, there isn't a law that says you can't do that. The problem is when you get the mortgage and you're getting, like he said, the better rate and the lower down payment, you're agreeing to say, my intention is to live in this for a year. So if you move out of it within a year, the bank can, if they want to, come to you and say, we think you lied. You were never going to live in it for a year. And we've had in our company people that applied for a loan, told us they were going to move into it, immediately put it up for rent on Facebook Marketplace, and the bank saw it. That's mortgage fraud. That's a big problem. But if you move into a place and the neighbors have a dog that barks every day at 4:30 in the morning and you can't stand it, you're not getting sleep, and you move out of it and put a renter in there, you didn't commit mortgage fraud unless that you intended to do that when you signed the loan document. So I think people freak out about this. They're like, I'm forced to live in a place. What if I don't like it? What if it's terrible? No, you can move back in with your parents. If something goes wrong, you hit financial hardship, you get a new job and have to move somewhere. That happens all the time. Don't use what he's saying knowing I just want a lower down payment, but I was buying it as an investment property.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. What else, guys?
Do you like short-term rentals or more long?
So we did both. I'll share our story so it's helpful. The house we bought, we fully believed it could be a short-term rental because it was 2021 and short-term rentals in Scottsdale were very, very hot at that point. It was the thing to do. So we bought this house. We had to spend like $70,000 to get it furnished. A lot of these short-term rental management companies, they make you use their designer to get the house all set up to then go rent it. They made us put a pool heater in, a bunch of things. And this is when Ashley and I were still pretty young in our investment career and all that. It's crazy. It was 5 years ago. You learn a lot in 5 years, just, to be clear. Today, we would just manage that ourselves and we would have furnished it ourselves and it'd be a fraction of the price. But we didn't know what we didn't know. And we were like, okay, we're going to trust people and we're going to do what they say. And so we spent 70, 80 grand and we put that on credit cards. And this was a like risk reward time where it was like, all right, this needs to pay off. And we put the house on Airbnb and it went up. And the first like 3 months, it was like 20 grand a month. And our mortgage payment was 5 grand. So the first few months, it was like 3 or 4 months where it was just killer. And we paid off those credit cards really quick. And then the whole Airbnb market collapsed. Because if you can make that much money, every investor is going to jump in because shoot, if I can make, what is that? 12 months, 20 grand. If I can make 240 grand a year, and your mortgage payment, 60 grand a year, every investor wants to jump in on that. So everyone did. And so every house became a short-term rental and flooded the market and made it really hard. We went into the next peak season and it was like we were barely making the mortgage payment. And the scam that the management company started doing was they would basically charge you for all these emergency repairs. And they had the repair company. So the way when the market kind of crashed out, they stole all of the other profit from you using repairs as the thing because they needed to keep making money. So we were making like $0. So we left it furnished. We pivoted. The big thing is pivoting. We left it furnished and we did midterm rentals, which is anywhere from like 3 months to 6 months to up to 12 months furnished. And we would make anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 a month. So it would more than pay the mortgage payment. Then we have the casita, we'd rent that out. And then we would have the horse stalls and we'd rent that out. So we found that was a much better method for us for that season than doing the short-term thing. You just have to have such a unique property nowadays on the short term for people to want it. And there's just too many people doing it. You've also kind of got burnt in that world. I don't know if you want to share anything from.
Yeah. When you do short-term rentals, you're not a real estate investor anymore. You're a business owner.
Yes.
It's like you're in the hospitality business. So you are now competing with all the other businesses that want the same clients you want. And like Landon said, Scottsdale was like well known as the hottest real estate market for short-term rentals around. All the bachelorette parties that are happening. And then it looked good, and then everyone jumped in, and it's not. And there's lots of markets. Orlando was really popular with all the Disneyland people, and Crystal Beach, Texas had a little moment. Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So all these people rush in. They all talk about it to their friends. Then they rush in. It oversaturates, and then it collapses. You go to Broken Bow, Oklahoma now, and there's for sale signs on every 3 houses. They're all just sitting there with, they're going to be foreclosures. So I don't think if you're like, I'm learning how to buy a house, don't even think about a short-term rental. Wait until you've got a couple, you've house hacked, you've built some equity, then say, all right, if we took something we already have and made it a short-term rental, now I don't have to put 20% down, and then I don't have to spend $80,000 on furnishings. I just furnish it reasonably on Marketplace or something. Would that make more than a traditional rental? If the answer is yes, and you want to do the work, yeah, go there. Don't jump in with that level of commitment before when you're new to real estate.
Yeah. It can be a good method. Like that tiny house we bought, we put on someone else's property, and they ended up using it as a short-term rental. And we paid 40 grand for that tiny house. And on Airbnb, it was making like $3 grand a month. And so, man, you're getting back your investment. It was 14 months. That's pretty good. So you could rent out, like you could put a trailer on a property and rent it out as long as it's nice and gets good reviews and you take care of people. I've seen a lot of that, and that's just great extra income. But yeah, I wouldn't jump straight into the short-term market as this is my whole thing.
What are realistic margins that you could expect if you wanted to buy a condo in Scottsdale specifically with the goal of doing long-term rentals with it?
So the question is, what are expected margins if you were to buy like a condo in an area like Scottsdale, live in it, and then turn it into rental? So largely will depend on interest rates. Right now, you're lucky if you break even, maybe lose 100 or two a month. And that's what probably people won't tell you, is the rental market is not that great. Which is great if you want to rent right now, because you get a good deal on rentals. The housing market's just been in this weird standstill for a couple of years where it's not really moving up or down, and people are trying to figure out what to do with their properties. And what needs to happen is interest rates need to come down into like the 4% range, and then we'll see the whole thing get unstuck, and it'll be awesome. But I can't confidently tell you that'll happen. But if interest rates came down by 2%, how much of a mortgage savings is that on like a $2,500 mortgage? Does it go down to like $2,100?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
It'd go from $2,500 a month to $2,100 a month. Well, then if you're able to rent it for $25, then you got $400 cash flow. That's where it gets good. And if interest rates keep coming down, well, now it's a $1,900 mortgage payment, and I'm bringing in 25, 26, 27. That's when real estate investing works well, is when interest rates are low and there's a high demand. We just haven't seen that in a couple of years. So a lot of people aren't enjoying being in the rental market at the moment. But when people are in a lot of pain and not enjoying it, that's where the market starts to turn around, because investors give up on it. It's the doom and gloom cycle, and then things start recovering.
There's another component to housing. You guys have heard a lot of the X's and O's of it, which is where you start. But what drives the market is the economy. So in 2021, the economy is doing really good. We printed a lot of money. There was jobs everywhere. People were making a lot of money right out of college. We don't have, in the country as a whole, any industry that's really crushing it right now. Software and tech was kind of the big driver. AI is replacing a lot of those jobs. We don't have a workforce that's really passionate about, I want to go get married and have kids and get a job. We've sort of fallen into this just numb stupor of hopelessness. And so everything's becoming expensive because there's not a lot enough people making it. When you're looking at buying a house and making a margin right off the bat, you're fighting an uphill battle with an economy that's kind of trudging along and interest rates that aren't really low, and there's not a lot of excitement. But if you're looking at, I have to pay X amount of money for rent every month, but if I buy this house and rent the rooms out to other people, I'm eliminating an expense. It doesn't really matter what condition the economy's in. In that time, you're cutting out something that you had to pay.
Yeah.
That's why we recommend you start with what we call house hacking, buying a primary. You put way less down, you get a better rate, and you are eliminating something you had to spend money on. Okay. If the market takes off and you bought a house every year this way, house hacking, you got 4 houses now that all went up in equity, that all can be made rentals. You can pivot, like Landon said, and adapt to what the market's giving you. Don't wait for that to happen, because then all the private equity money moves in. They buy everything before you get a chance to, and you're left with crushed dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else, guys?
For my specific situation, so going into marriage, upgrade setup for house, like no need to go out and buy a house immediately. But if we're stacking cash, we have good savings. When we have a good spot that we can live out of, like low expenses, all that, would you recommend just keep stacking cash there, wait until we're going to move, and then go get a bigger property, say like a casita, where we could rent it out and live out of it so we can get that tax benefit? Or would you recommend just get into the housing market, get a condo, get a small property, rent it out? You wouldn't get the tax benefit, but still be in the market, or get like your trailer. What would you suggest to that?
Yeah. I know your situation. So I think my recommendation would be it's hard to out save how equity increases. So like the housing market has been in a standstill for 2 or 3 years. If you look at the chart for the last 40 years, that never happens. It rarely happens, where we're just kind of flat, maybe falling a little bit. So we are due for the market to take off. 5, 10% jump, 15% jump. Like over the next few years, it can't stay like it is today. And it's a healthy correction. We jump so fast and then a standstill for a little bit, and then another jump will come. You will, if you were to buy like a condo and rent it out, even if you're losing a little bit of money every month, well, you're going to be able to participate in the jump in equity long term, and then interest rates coming down, you could refinance it, and it could be a great rental for you. That's what I would probably do. I would stack cash too, because it's not going to wipe you out every month. If you've got a $2,300 a month condo and somebody's paying you $2,000 a month rent, well, it's $300 a month, but I'm participating in the equity growth, and you get a tax benefit from having a rental. There's depreciation, which is over the next, is it 27 years or 37 years? You depreciate your house.
27 and a half.
27 and a half years. You depreciate certain things in your house, and it counts against your income. So you actually save money on taxes. There's a lot of good reasons to have rentals. If it's not super painful for you and you have a really good living situation that doesn't cost you much, buy a rental, lose a couple $100 a month, try to break even. And Ashley and I could help give you a lot of scenarios where you could break even or maybe earn a little extra. And then either sell it down the road or keep it as a rental. But being able to get in the market is a good thing, and could be a great plan for you guys, or stack cash. But if you can stack cash and have a thing that increases in equity by 40 grand, well, you save 40 grand and you increase the equity by 40 grand. So 80 grand. Awesome. So that'd be how I'd think about it.
Is your current housing situation, would it still be there if worst case scenario happened and it didn't work out?
Yes.
That's a great fallback. I also think the market you're in influences how aggressive you should be.
Yeah.
Scottsdale, from my understanding, is where a lot of like solid good money is moving to.
Yep.
Okay. If you were in California right now,
No.
Bay Area, I'd probably be like, stay what you're doing. Yeah. This is not the time to make.
Well, all the chip factories are coming here. So you guys got to think about, if you're like, the area we're in right now is going to be the nicest area in Arizona for the next forever. Like Scottsdale will always be the premier location. Like right, we're selling a house a few miles from here, and they're putting in a $2 billion shopping complex with nice steak restaurants and like bougie apartments and everything. I'm so glad I own a house next to that, because it's just going to keep getting nicer around here. And the further things like chip factories come in and stuff, and more jobs move here, prices have to increase because there's only so many houses. Well, and the wealthier people in those companies, they're going to want to live in Scottsdale. Well, there's a finite number of houses in Scottsdale, so those will be the ones that go up the fastest. Owning houses in Scottsdale is like owning Microsoft stock or Google stock. All houses increase in value, but houses in certain areas will increase faster than others. So,
And they're protected in recessions more.
Yeah.
That's the other side.
yep. 100%.
If there's a recession, Scottsdale's not likely to be hammered. Some of these other markets could be devastated, like Prescott. that you
Yeah,
described.
that's what I experienced. The Prescott market is very different from here. I understand this market. I didn't understand that market, and that's where I got in trouble. You could do a short term up in Prescott, like just a something cool, small cabin, cute. We made such a critical mistake because the cabin we were going to buy was on a little creek and it was half the price and it was tiny, but that house would have sold today. The one I bought didn't. So I understood Scottsdale's market. And if I would have bought what I bought up there down here, that thing would have flown off the shelf, but it was a totally different market. So,
That's a good point.
yeah, understanding your markets are important.
I wonder how many of the people in the parable that invested the 5 talents and made 5 more, how many losses did that servant take, but he learned and he used that to amplify from the other ones? Like we assume that there's 100% success rate,
No.
but that's not how it works.
No, you got to win more than you lose. That's the important thing. And you can't win if you don't try. So, I'm excited for you guys. There is an awesome future ahead. There's a lot of doom and gloom always. There's always talk about housing markets being awful. There's always talk about housing markets being awesome. And you want to buy when everybody's saying it's awful, not when everyone's saying it's awesome. It is way harder to buy when everyone's like, oh my gosh, everyone should buy real estate. And look at it. Look at the rates of return, all that. That will come back. It always will come back in America. Right now, it has not been a very good season because interest rates just stayed high to try to get inflation back down. It won't stay like that. And everyone will be like, can you believe what it was like in 2026 to buy a house? You could lowball somebody and get it. In 2027 or 2028, it'll be like, there's 8 offers on every house again. And BlackRock's buying things up and blah, 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 blah. So you will not regret buying a house as long as you can stay in it for not a year or 2 years, at least 3 to 5 years. If you could stay in a house for 3 to 5 years, worst case, like, oh, well, we bought this condo, the economy crashed tomorrow. Well, we bought this condo, we can stay in it for 3 years. Well, the market will correct and keep climbing. It's the people that have to sell where you get in trouble. Yeah. All right.
Deal.
Well, thank you guys. Hopefully you guys learned something out of this talk, and hope that you guys buy a house at some point. I'll pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this room of young people that are thinking and considering the biggest financial decision they'll ever make. Pray for the people online as well. Hopefully this was helpful. These are good things. These are godly things to consider, to seek wise counsel on, and just pray blessing and direction for each person in this room.
Amen.
Thank you guys for that tuned in online. If you have any additional questions, drop them in the comments below. I will answer them in a future video. And like, comment, subscribe, smash all the buttons. See you guys soon.